Welcome into Type Speaks, the show where I dive into the stories, struggles, and sparks of inspiration behind great design. I'm your host, Ray, and I'm going to be pulling back the curtain on the creative process, but not just the work itself, but the people who make it happen. Each episode, I sit down with a different creative mind to uncover how they think, work, and everything in between. So if you're curious about the why behind design and the stories of the people shaping our world one idea at a time, you're in the right place. Hello, and welcome into the 14th episode of Type Speaks and the first video part, I guess, of Type Speaks. I'm joined with the wonderful Meguey Baker, who is a tabletop role-playing game designer, independent publisher, and quilt historian whose work has significantly shaped modern narrative game design. Along with her partner, Vincent Baker, she has co-created Apocalypse World, the groundbreaking game system that launched the now widespread Powered by the Apocalypse system.
Mm-hmm.
Does that all sound right to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
I'm very excited. You're going to come to Auburn very soon.
Yes, I'm going to be there for Halloween, which I'm excited for.
Yeah,
the 29th, 30th, and 31st.
If you're listening before the 29th, 31st, you should check that out and be there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish I could quote to you the things I'm doing. I know there's I'm going to some classrooms and I'm doing some public appearance thing, talking in the evening, and I'm sure you can find out more about it if you look on, whatever Auburn website.
If I was a better journalist, I would have had that information, but I don't, unfortunately. But
I'm sure people can find it.
User interactive experience.
Yeah.
Just like games.
Hey, yeah.
What? So yeah.
Nice segue.
Yeah. My first kind of question overall was, as a graphic designer, I'm just wondering, because I see all these games and I'm like, wow, this is wonderful and beautiful and people do this, but actually getting to design the game itself, how did you get into that? How was that even introduced to you? Because you started off in 2006, right?
Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of two-part question, because one is about designing a game, and then about doing the graphic design around the game. And it's really a fascinating process. A lot of my first draft stuff when I'm just dumping notes I'm usually dumping notes either into a physical notebook or into a Google Doc.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have a lot of graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
There's times when, my first game, 1001 Nights, a game of enticing stories, I did so much of the design on that game while I was strolling my youngest child around town and writing in a notebook. So stop here, write a thing, or in line for picking up the older kids, hang out, write a thing. So of course there's a little bit of graphic design that happens with pen and paper that you get to make at least notes. I get to make at least notes to myself, oh, this should be boxed out, this needs to be in bold, sort of thing. But then once it hits the process of how do I present this information in a way that it is accessible, and that it creates a document that people can reproduce the sort of play experience and conversations that I'm looking to foster in doing game design, then it comes through a ton of graphic design questions, like what font do I use? What shape, what physical dimensions is the final book? How many pages are there? So what do I have for design on the spine? All of that is definitely part of that. Right from the get-go. How did I come to it? So I grew up playing games, all kinds of games from the time I was a little kid. And it's really interesting to think that one of my big design influences on game designs, I didn't realize this till right now, is probably the Delaire's Book of Greek Myths and the Delaire's Book of Norse Myths.
Hmm.
I was also, of course, as a little kid playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was, 7, 8, 10 years old. And so like there was that there, but it wasn't ever as grabby to me as um, those, Delaire's books of mythology, which has a lot of graphic design. You have
Hmm.
gorgeous full color illustrations, beautiful text layout, lots of breathing space around the text blocks. Um, and so those are definitely, I never put that together till this question, that those are definitely part of
I'm
my
glad I could jog
design.
that
But
memory for
yeah,
you.
that's super cool. Yeah. Um, how did I get that? I don't know. So the game design piece is easy, right? The game design piece is I always played games. I always made up games from the time I was little. And so coming to a place of like, I think I want to do this bit.
Yeah.
Um, that was just that was a development process like any craft. You practice your craft so you can produce your art, and it was just like figuring out how do I make this happen. um it's funny because like I just said, the game design part was easy, but it's also not
Yeah.
easy, right? You're juggling so many interacting pieces. And one of the things that's really interesting to me about the sort of technical part of game design is that really I'm writing a technical manual,
Hmm.
right? It has to be extremely clear. And it's a technical manual for a sort of complex process that I have to make sure I've conveyed all the pieces so that people can, have an experience
Hmm.
kind of like I'm hoping that they'll. Um, and then I have to layer that into graphic design and font choice and flourishes. And then there's another piece in there, which is the design of the voice of the
Hmm.
game. Sort of what language am I taking using in the text, and how does it convey what I'm saying? Do you have a follow-up question? I feel like I
Yeah.
gave you a good answer,
Yeah,
but
I
also
have.
not quite an
No,
answer.
it was a good answer. I think
Okay.
the idea of like it always starts like playing games, obviously.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, because for me, when I'm thinking about, obviously as a graphic designer, I have my senior project coming up, and I'm not gonna lie, the thought of designing a game has come up. It's happened before. Some people have done card games, board games,
Sure.
other various types of things. And for senior project, you get to design one big project of your own choosing.
Hmm.
But and for me, when I was thinking about if I wanted to do this, the first thing that comes to mind is like what it would look like. I'm a graphic
Yeah.
designer. I think in visuals. So I just wondered, when you like begin a new game, like
Hmm.
does a mechanic come first, like themes, or like what is the first kind of inception of that idea for you?
Right. Um, when I'm thinking of a new game, really like it's what story do I want to tell?
Mm-hmm.
Like what am I thinking about? How do I tell that story? And then immediately it's what mechanics support that story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do I make something that is so that the mechanics are not in competition with the story? Because that
Mm-hmm.
happens a lot. It's super easy. Every game designer has done this. Some of there's a whole bunch of things where you have a story, and then you say, oh, well, let's use this mechanic for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're looking for a game that has a lot of choice and a lot of open-endedness, if you like nail it down to a mechanic that's very tight and closed and like this is what it's doing, you're not going to get that. There are games that are great games that have this grinding conflict of mechanic. Growing up, like I don't, like nothing comes in springing to mind, or if it does, I'm not going to say because that's kind of cool. But there are definitely games that I played out there that had like the idea of this is a sort of interpersonal, social, like collaborative community type conversation.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to make you uh, roll, you know, 3D10s against each other, and whoever's number is highest wins. Like, it's not, they don't match.
Yeah.
So, that's a big deal. So really for in terms of a capstone senior project sort of thing, um, especially in design, it, I mean, like that's the thing, like figure out what you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say
Yeah.
first? And then you can go from there, like whether that looks like a poster or a game or a fashion show, figure out how you express that story that you want to tell in a way that means that other people can understand it.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of seeing the through line of like just storytelling and how to tell that
Yeah,
story
it's kind of
like the
clear.
best way. I can It's interesting because I couldn't even like think of mechanics and like in a way that's like
Yeah.
aiding to storytelling. That's why I think game design is so interesting to me. Obviously, I asked this in another interview and I liked the answer I got, so I'm gonna ask you a little bit differently. But
Okay.
what would you personally design? What would you personally define as good game design, and like kind of what good qualities kind of
Uh,
show through a good game design, or just a good game in general?
Good. Wow, those are fascinating questions. What is good game design? Boy, I mean, I think a good game design has, you're saying something about the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
You're making some commentary on your insight into situation that you're examining, wherever your characters are. You are having characters that are shaped for the experience you want. They're fit to the purpose. Um, that's good. I mean, it's such a huge question because
Mm-hmm.
of course I'm thinking like board game design and playground games
Mm-hmm.
and card games and how many of them have like they each have a different sort of design spec.
Yeah.
Um, a good yeah, like a good game design expresses what you want to express in the rules so that other people can do that thing. And it has I think, has some sort of vision or audience in mind. It's not trying to be all things to all people,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a way to make some really bland stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has to do what it says on the box.
Mm-hmm.
If you're advertising, if you're saying, if all your graphic design and your text and everything says, this is what this game is about, and then it's about something else, then your players are going to be dissatisfied,
Mm-hmm.
like with any other thing, any other form of storytelling medium,
Mm-hmm.
movie, book, uh, album of music, it
Yeah.
has to do what it says. Um, Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
my answer.
I mean, yeah. I wanted to kind of grab something what you said. You talked about like
Mhm.
you can't design for everyone. A game like just for
Yeah,
everyone in general. Like it kind of just makes a flat game almost. I kind of wanted
yeah,
to talk a bit
yeah.
more
I
about
mean,
that.
yeah.
About like, do you have kind of players in mind when you start designing a game, or when you're kind of in that process, you kind of have a certain, I guess, obviously a
Mm.
certain audience in mind.
Hmm. For me, I have usually like there's a lot of marketing research on this about
Mm-hmm.
like imagining
Yeah.
your target person and like what they're doing and like making a whole persona for who your target audience is. I don't do that pretty much at all ever.
Yeah.
The games that I design are like me saying a thing like, here's what I've made. And then trusting that the audience for that game will find it.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is being willing to be enthusiastic about my work and not shut up about it. Be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I made this thing. It's cool.
Yeah.
It does this, that's fun. Um, but I also like, I've been doing this for 25
Mm-hmm.
years. So there's a lot of um, letting go.
Mm-hmm.
I do the best I can. I make it the best I can that does like all the things I want it to do the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
I said that 3 times. And so that's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't run around saying, "Oh, you're playing my game wrong,"
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. I love to answer questions if people are like, "Oh, hey, I have a question about the rules," or "I have a question about this." Awesome, here for that. But I I definitely have games that I've made that I've been enthusiastic about, and I've put them up, and like a couple people play them. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, I had fun making it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other things that we've put out, Thousand One Nights and Siren and are my games, and then Apocalypse World, of course, and um, Murderous Ghosts, very seasonally appropriate, and Under Hollow Hills,
Mm-hmm.
and other things that we are very, very glad have a larger audience.
But yeah, talking about the audience in kind of it's really interesting because in design there's this dichotomy of like commercial work and designing specifically for a specific person in mind and an audience and market research, and then there's just design for design's sake, like visually appealing things just for whoever finds it or what audience wants to come
Yeah,
upon it.
yeah,
So I liked that. I kind of like the idea of just being like, I want to make this game because I like it, and if you're like me and you like it, come play it.
yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
just it's very
I mean,
human,
there's
and
an
I like
overlap
that.
with graphic design there, right? Like if you're designing shirts,
Mm-hmm.
t-shirts or posters or buttons or whatever, there is very much like, this is what I like. This is what my work looks like. If you like it, awesome.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah.
yeah. I kind of want to talk about like players in general because
Mhm.
again, like when I'm playing games, I didn't really don't really think about like, oh, someone had to sit here and tweak how I'm playing it and how the game mechanics
Yeah.
work so I
Yeah.
have the optimal experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
As much as I think most players try to break the constraints are still
Sure.
there. So I wanted to
Yeah.
ask about how do you how do you know when to limit a player's ability and how to like let them
Mm.
free to like
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
there's a story that you are telling through a game, but also you let the players themselves tell their own story. So how, if that
Yeah,
makes any
absolutely.
sense.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. It is a delicate work. It is a really important thing, I think, of tabletop role-playing
Mm-hmm.
game design, is to find, imagine a coloring book,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm, I don't mean now we're in a whole place of like weird art, like draw your way to relaxation. I don't mean that. I mean like kids coloring books,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we all did when we were little kids. And then there's there's a structure, there's a shape, and then we get to fill it in with our own color
Mm-hmm.
and our own things that we want. We can draw plaid or polka dots or whatever. Nothing is saying it has to be all filled in. And then if you've ever encountered the anti-coloring books, which if not, I highly recommend, um, they are much more open-ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a picture of a seascape around the edges, and then what did you find buried
Mm-hmm.
in the shipwreck? You just have open-ended pages, which for some folks is really fun. But I think that's part of the job of a good tabletop role-playing game, I think, is to leave the space, make sure you're actively leaving space for the players to color it in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if I've filled in all the details, there's no room
Mm-hmm.
left. And I have a couple games like that we've over the years of time where I'm like, oh, there's no space left. I've gotten so excited about world building in this. I've built the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
There's no space. Okay, well, I had fun building it. Um, and so that question of how to find the edges of the design space, um, that's an ongoing, like one should be asking that every time as you're doing the design. How do you limit that? How do you shape that? The rules text, of course, is one. The whatever player sheets, your character sheet or other table aids is another, which of course leads uh, like super clearly into the intersection of game design and graphic design.
Hmm.
What's on the sheet? What are you giving them? What are the places? Um, the recognition that people need a place on the sheet to draw,
Hmm.
you know, do you include that? Do you
Yeah.
not include that? All these things. What are the mechanics and how do they support, how do they structure your player's experience? Are they handling dice? Are they handling cards? Are they uh, not handling anything? How does that create creative constraints
Hmm.
on them? Because we thrive in creative constraints.
Yeah.
We want enough space, but we actually do want some limits. And for this, I think the most wonderful game to look at for this, the easiest thing is tag,
Hmm.
right? We all played tag as kids. And the way that it becomes quickly really unfun if there's no other constraint, because one kid's just going to run
Yeah.
and then nobody can get to catch them. And then it's like, oh, come on.
Hmm.
Okay, Jane, we get it. You're fast.
Hmm.
But we need creative constraints in order for it to be satisfying
Hmm.
in this sort of shared experience. And that tips over into tabletop role-playing games too. We unless we all sit down together at the table understanding, okay, there's no rules. It's wide open. We're just gonna make stuff up, which can be fun, but we've given ourselves the creative constraint of for this table, for this
Hmm.
time and place, right? Because that's fun in
Hmm.
that moment. And if we're like, okay, for this game, but even right away, real quick, it's going to be, all right, there's no rules. What if we're dinosaurs on a spaceship? Great, now we have rules,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's a process of keeping enough open space, providing enough creative constraints, and choosing those creative constraints so that they drive your underlying uh, desire as a designer for like,
Hmm.
here's what I'm looking to put in front of you is this experience.
Hmm.
And that's so different than being a visual designer in
Hmm.
ways because you're trying to design an experience,
Hmm.
and that's challenging.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's becoming more together in a sense. I'm saying that now obviously I'm putting together like there's a job called experience designers and like
Yeah.
user interface designers that are
Yep.
designing visually. Obviously this is most of the time for like
Yeah.
apps or websites and their
Advertising. Yeah.
advertising purposes. But there's also designers
Yeah.
that design. I worked on a project last year. It was a like a interactive museum like workshop for people
Love that.
for people to come
As a
in.
museum curator, thank you for that. I love that. I wish I had a bigger
Mhm.
budget to do that sort of thing at my
Yeah,
museum.
it was like an
Yeah.
interactive like art and design um,
Yeah.
space. Actually, if you want to learn about it, it won last year the Biodesign National
Oh,
Competition for
cool. Wow,
best
that's awesome.
display. So if you're interested in looking that up,
Congratulations.
I helped. Actually, it was my old co-host Imiko's project that I was put on to help with. So I think it's very
That's
interesting
awesome.
that thank you that like there it's visuals now. The graphic designer's job is becoming more experience based
Yeah,
in general as well
definitely.
in the industry. So I think the idea of like game design is also is kind of coming into that. A lot more students are thinking, oh wow,
Yeah.
like if I can design an app, I could also do something more fun like a board game.
Yeah, it is. There's like you're so right. There's like this um it's a gradient, like a big multi-point gradient smear between um like experience design of like, oh, you're going to come into this car that we're launching this new car and we're
Hmm.
going to have it be so clean that you can eat off of it. So we're going to serve food on the hood of the car. Isn't that like, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and that's when I heard about an experience design
Hmm.
where like that was literally part of the deal
Yeah.
was, and then they had like people with squeegees like after each course, just
Mm-hmm.
like squeegee the car. I'm like, this is weird, but cool. And but like museum interfaces, and interactive displays, advertising interactive displays. Anytime you go to a like a fair and there's like
Mm-hmm.
carnival games or like a corn maze or whatever, like design is everywhere
Mm-hmm.
and games are everywhere
Mm-hmm.
and they overlap a lot more than we think. I think there's a lot more going on. Um, Sometimes like grocery stores have game design,
Mm-hmm.
that's why they put all the like fancy produce up front and it's
Oh
all
yeah.
sweet and inviting. It's why they put all the non-perishables in the middle. Like they're planning to have you move through the experience
Mm-hmm.
in a certain way and
Mm-hmm.
it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
It's interesting. I was just learning, I'm in an art history class and learning about the Mesoamerican ball game. And it made me think about
yeah,
how we love games as humans. We
yeah,
love games so much. Like, we make these
we can't
games
not.
and we make rules for ourselves and then we play them with our
Yes.
friends and our enemies
Yes.
in that case.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Yes. And like we are now living in a place where we're finally getting to an archaeological question where the archaeological question is not, could this be a ritual
Mm-hmm.
object, but could this be a game?
Mm-hmm.
Because games are so deeply in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're mammals, ergo we play.
Mm-hmm.
And we play games to figure out how we fit in our society.
Mm-hmm.
And this is throughout mammals and also crows play games. So it's throughout
Mm-hmm.
chordata. And I don't know if flatworms play games, but maybe. And, do mushrooms play games? I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
probably.
I
Um,
feel like they would. I'm
right.
not a biologist, but
Absolutely.
if
Yeah,
anything would play a game, would be a mushroom
I think so too. I think that mushrooms probably would play a game. They might already be playing games.
with
They're
our
sneaky.
lives.
But that thing, right? That is unbelievably true. And I'm so happy to hear you say it because this is like a steady drumbeat I have. It's like playing games is our birthright. It's what we do. It's we can't not. It's
Mm-hmm.
how we experience the world. Like our first work is play
Mm-hmm.
to experiment and see things like little tiny babies, like a 3-month old who's just figuring out they have hands and they're lying on their back and there's light coming through and there's dust motes in the air and they're figuring out, oh, if I move my hand, then the dust motes move. Because we're tiny scientists and we're tiny game players. We
Mm-hmm.
can't not from the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. And then all of that just expands out, right? So then we're playing games to figure out how gravity works, right? If I drop this toy, it goes down. And then eventually we're playing games with friends and other people of like, hey, let's do a thing together. And then we're just playing all kinds of games.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone's like, oh, this young little creature now can start learning about like the rest of
Mm-hmm.
their world, their culture, their community. And now we get all the games where where we are mimicking adult
Yeah.
behavior around us. And then it just keeps going. The issue is when we get to whatever that point is where someone says we shouldn't anymore. And like, oh, you need time to be serious, time to be an adult, stop playing games. Maybe you can play bridge or poker or bowling. You can play those.
You can play
And you can
solitaire.
follow sports and you can play solitaire and you can play sports or you can watch sports. There's just really weird things. And those are actually kind of antiquated even for me to say because that ideology is like so incredibly specific to the 1950s when we're about to enter the new games movement and about to come into the 1960s and 70s where there's like this incredible resurgence of games,
Mm-hmm.
resurgence of play and public games and public play. Like, what's fun? A billion tag variations. What if we got a bunch of 20 somethings and 30 somethings together in the park and played a bunch of new
Yeah.
games. And that's like where then, so I'm born right into that,
Hmm.
where these games are like they're starting to be a concept of public playfulness and games as as a not just an acceptable like there's it's really reaching into, oh, this is a thing adults do. You don't
Hmm.
have to stop playing games with your friends, and you don't have to limit yourself to these specific 5 board games that everybody has. We can keep going. And that leads to this incredible explosion we have now of
Yeah.
games everywhere and everything.
I don't know
Yay,
why.
human evolution.
I mean, yeah. It made me think of, I don't know why, when you're talking about that, I work with children over the summer, typically, as a camp counselor, as an
Mhm.
art camp counselor specifically.
Yeah,
And I had
yeah,
not realized how many of like the games they fill their time with are purely visual.
yeah,
Tic Tac Toe, Hangman are these instantly recognizable games to all of these small children, and they can just
yep.
do it by themselves and do it together, and they will. Like when they're bored, they're like, I want to play Hangman. I want to play Tic Tac Toe. Or they call it
They
something
just will.
different now. They don't say Hangman anymore.
Huh.
I think in schools they're trying to get away from that violence. I don't know. And maybe that's the right
It's really
answer.
hard. Yeah. And that's one of the interesting things because games pool, you know, there's a bunch of games that pool in uh pre-K
Mm-hmm.
and like nursery school games because that's what's necessary and appropriate for that age, sort of. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they play. And then there's games that pool at each level throughout
Mm-hmm.
school as you continue through. Uh Partly because of how brain development works and how different like brain development wants different stages of brain development want different things. And part of it's how we become like culturally aware and want more complexity or whatever as we grow up. But it's always really interesting to me to step back and look at the fondness that adults have for some of those experiences of the games that pool in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
That like, oh man, I loved red light, green light, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever
Mm-hmm.
games that get talking to a bunch of 40-year-olds who don't have kids specifically about games they played as children, and they'll be like, oh right, yeah, we used to play amoeba, or we used to play sardines, or we used to play all these things, and then it's like, okay, but why do you not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're still fun.
Yeah.
Why do you not?
I would love to play some red light, green light with some of my DJs here at the radio. You know how fun that
Wouldn't
would
it be
be?
fun? So fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is that a lot of these games, a lot of the first games we have that actually have a fairly complex rule set are when if you went to write it down and like really like people who weren't familiar, didn't have the cultural touchstones for red light, green light,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Um, it's a couple like a page of rules, couple
Yeah.
pages of rules, whatever, and then you just play it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why not? And I think one of the things that it comes into the why not is back to experience design about like the whole 80s, maybe 90s, corporate like corporate games, corporate bonding games, corporate like let's
Mm.
go on a retreat and everybody's gonna play a
The
game.
team
And people
building
being like, oh
games.
my God, I don't want to do this. That balance of knowing that people play games by their nature. But when you try to make that happen in a place that is not voluntary, what does that do to that drive?
Mm-hmm.
If you're like have to go to a corporate team building retreat and you are like you have to go, you're not gonna, unless you can do the like, all right, well, I have to go, may as well be all in,
Yeah.
you know, let's do trust falls.
Mm-hmm.
But um I think that's part of the recovery process
Mm-hmm.
of getting all the way through high school. And then if you go to college, all the way through college, and then if you're in the workforce,
Mm-hmm.
recovering from some of that stuff to get to the point where you're like, okay, playing games can be fun, and I
Mm-hmm.
can do all these things, like everything,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we can bring that back and we can design for that. We can design fun experiences that we want to have on purpose
Hmm.
and make them available for other people.
Yeah, and have them be available for everyone. No,
Yeah.
I was thinking it is interesting how we have this almost set of games that are like these are the games you can have play with your friends, and then these are the games that
Yep.
are considered more nerdy and weird. Like we have these
Yep.
acceptable games. I'm thinking about the typical card games, board games that are very
Yeah.
fun. I'm not dogging on Uno for being popular.
Oh my God. Uno. Love Uno. Uno. Best game.
Uno is also very
Arguably.
interesting because it has set rules, but in public perception, no one follows those rules. There's a separate rule set that everyone knows, but that is not the correct, like the, I'm saying quote unquote, the correct way of playing Uno.
Right. And then there's all the house rules and there's house rule. I remember when they really leaned into that
Hmm.
and like it was great. It was a great moment of an incredibly widespread game
Yeah.
that knows it's like got a rock solid place in the
Hmm.
market, leaning into go ahead and hack this.
Yeah.
Get your house rules in here. You still need to buy our deck of cards,
Yeah.
but then get your house rules in. I loved that. Fabulous. It was
Hmm.
fabulous.
Great, great marketing for that too,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah. And great graphic design on that because they had the
it's.
regular box and then like a yellow sticky note that said house rules
Mhm.
in the graphic design on the box. And it was just a really smart graphic design choice
Yeah.
for that.
What is
Yeah.
so, I think also what is so popular about Uno is how simple it is.
Yep.
Colors, numbers.
Go.
Even if you struggle with either of those things, the colors are still
Hmm.
contrasted enough that you can tell they're different colors,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
numbers are visually
It's
different.
good design.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's really good design. And it's always really interesting to me when Uno uh does a weird design choice. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's not gonna work. And now, like, this is weird. Now we're just talking about design. Do you remember? I don't know when this was. Celestial Seasons Tea. Do you remember when they tried to do a different design and it was like
Yes.
radically unsuccessful?
Yes.
Because like this little homey, artsy, beautiful full color art box. And then they tried hard to do this. No,
Hmm.
it's gonna be white and clean and
Mm-mm.
modern with this little, and it was just like categorically not. And then they're
It's
like, whoops,
it's
you know.
almost like an inside. It's like an outside joke now of in
Yeah.
design because so many companies are doing it and it's failing so hard.
Right.
And so many people are like, "Why did you do this? We didn't want that. We wanted the original that you had."
Yeah. We like stability and security, and we like innovation in ways that are recognizable
Hmm.
and will like bring us along,
Not
right?
challenging.
If we're right, we either if we're going to encounter something new, we want to encounter something new.
Hmm.
If we have something that is familiar and like established and comfortable, blah, 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 blah. We can totally adapt with change, but you gotta adapt. You
Hmm.
can't slam into it. We don't love that.
That kind of.
I.e., any user face
Mhm.
on any digital product ever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That kind of made me think about how a lot of, I think, of course, now because of the rise of these Critical Role, Dropout, all of these
Yeah.
popular
Yeah. Yeah.
game playing like
Yeah.
podcasts, or even others, I've seen some people say this is their first experience and it's this niche podcast and that's awesome to hear. But a lot of people like just stick to D&D. They know it, they play
Yeah.
it, they love it, and a lot of people
Sure.
are almost intimidated to switch to something else. And
Yeah.
I
Isn't that
kind of
interesting?
I kind of wanted to ask your thoughts about that because I know
Yeah.
I was like my first
Sure.
dive into another game besides D&D was Call of Cthulhu, which was very
Yeah.
very it's not actually that different, but it is different. In my head
Yeah.
it was like harder and oh the health mechanics are different and I can't heal and all this
Yeah.
other stuff, but when I played it I was like, "Oh wait, I know what this is."
Yeah.
It's like just
Yeah.
rolling
Yeah.
different dice at different
Um,
times.
yeah, exactly. I think that's really interesting. Like when people are like, "Oh, I don't know," like, how about that?
Mhm.
Right? Because if I got a new board game and I said, hey, come on out, like to my board game crew, whatever that might be, that hypothetical group, it's like, hey, come on over, let's try this new board game
Mhm.
I got. People are like, awesome, yeah. If I get a new video game, sure. You
Yeah.
know, like, oh, cool, let's try it. There's a new update on Minecraft. all right, new
Hmm.
server, let's go, you know? Forget all the time we put into all of our builds on the last server. Those
Yeah.
mean nothing now. Um, but role-playing games have this weird space with that where there is reluctance. And I think there's reluctance for two reasons. And one of them has to do with familiarity, and that's fine. Um, that's no big
Hmm.
thing. Just like, hey, let's play this one shot of a different game. You know, Martha can't make it tonight. Let's play a one shot of something else
Yeah.
instead. Cool. Um, and the other has to do with the level of personal creative investment that you make in a role-playing game versus a board game,
Hmm.
right? If I'm playing a new board game, I'm just excited about the new board game and I'll be like, oh, this is cool. Maybe there's mechanics I don't like. That's fine. Maybe you know, am really there to hang out with people and I don't really care if I win or lose. That's like half the time for me because I'm just more interested in the game and like playing the game and looking at how it goes. I get distracted and
Hmm.
don't try to win. I just try to explore the game, which I think is hilarious. But in a role-playing game, if you really invested in your character, right? Especially in a game that has like a much like a which has as a marketing strategy you can just keep playing this game
Hmm.
forever. And like, oh, I've been playing this game for 6 months or 6 years, and I'm like, I have my character and I have all my backstory, and there's all
Yeah.
the world building and I'm really invested in this world. And now you're asking me to go to a different world?
Yeah.
I'm like, but my special guy.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, your special guy is still there. That's fine, but you could have another
A new
special guy.
one.
So, I think that's really
Hmm.
interesting. And then the third factor, I think, is like all of this, like the world's psychic maelstrom and the pressure that everybody's under
Yeah.
right now, right? We have a finite amount of time
Hmm.
in a day. And the incredible pressure that people are under now versus like I guess the 80s. Like in the 80s, we were just afraid that either AIDS was going to kill us or there was going to be a nuclear annihilation.
One of those
I
is
mean,
still
that's
true.
fine, right. Those they just found a way to cure. So yay.
Yay.
But in the 80s, we were like, all right,
Hmm.
that's fine. But we're going to play games anyway. Um, but now I think there is a much, from what I see sitting here at 54, what I see in people who are 30 and under is like for myself too,
Hmm.
obviously, but you know, the 15 to 30 crowd, which I think is the big target market for role-playing games
Hmm.
in the way that we're talking about. Um, People are freaking stressed,
Hmm.
right? There's no time
Mm-mm.
because there's no security.
Hmm.
There's no jobs.
Hmm.
There's no third places where you can hang out with friends, which means there's fewer friends.
Hmm.
Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. And
Yeah.
then if there's any part of that that impacts your mental health or, you know, it's just it's a lot. And so then you get into the thing of just really wanting your comfortable stuff to stay
Hmm.
comfortable. Um, and like I said before, you can encounter a new thing, like new game, you know, new video game, new board game, new movie, new music, that's fine. But something that is like what your comfortable stuff is, but not what your comfortable stuff is, sometimes you need to make a bigger concerted effort for that. And
Hmm.
especially for board gaming, excuse me, for tabletop role-playing games, you can't make that leap alone,
Yeah.
right? You need three other people.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if you don't have three other people who want to go do this thing with you, that's rough. And especially in this place where, you know, all of those those constricting bans on someone's uh, available time and friend group and et cetera, are true. If you have a group of 8 people that you play your game with, and you want to try this other game that is really good for 3 or 4 people, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
what do you do? And in the 80s and early 90s, it was less, it was like, you know, the 10 of us get together and hang out and play D&D, but the five of us are going to play Shadowrun, and then the three of us are going to play um, Ars Magica.
Mm.
And I was in all three of those games,
Yeah.
and that was fine. I was also in college, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of other things that happened, I guess in the 90s, not the 80s.
Mm.
In the 80s, I was playing D&D and Robotech Macross, the role-playing game, and what was the other one? There was one other one.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, I was not
Yeah.
playing Vampire the Masquerade. I just want to put that on the record. I don't know why. So,
Yeah, I have kind of two things I wanted to kind of bounce off on. First was the video game thing. It's interesting when you said that because for me, my two favorite like AAA games are inspired by TTRPGs, which is Fallout and Cyberpunk. They
yeah,
both started as TTRPGs and are now
yeah,
these big video games. One's a franchise. I
yeah.
don't know if Cyberpunk's becoming a franchise. I don't know, but
I know.
it's easier for me to switch between those worlds in this contained computer than it is for me to play the actual game in person. I never had
Yeah, of course.
thought about it like that. Especially, it's easy for that one because I'm thinking about in terms of like playing Fallout. I'm playing Cyberpunk. Also, I've heard that
Sure.
playing Fallout's not optimized, but it's a whole other conversation. Um,
Yeah.
but like the idea of playing those games in person is more intimidating than me booting up my computer and starting a new world.
Mhm.
I
Right,
never really
because
thought
for
about
you,
that.
you get that. Yeah, because you get to do that just yourself. You get to be in charge. Like, all right, switch on a new world, but you have the familiarity of the game.
Hmm.
And if you don't like that world, you can ditch out of it really easy because it's just you,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
That's fine. You can play Minecraft in a like death is death,
Yeah.
reboot the world. Or you can play Minecraft in a like I just want to play in creative
Hmm.
because that's what I like. Um
Mine is easy. Keep
yeah.
inventory on. Instant
Keep
respawn.
inventory is the best, right? Keep
Thank you.
inventory. Yes, it's
Hmm.
the best. Keep inventory and then also like reducing the number of people who have to sleep so that you're not constantly in the chat going, can people sleep?
People
Can somebody
sleep.
sleep? Can people sleep?
I
Oh
would.
my God. It's
I'm showing this to the Weagle. We've had 3 servers so far, and every single time, I'm in the minority saying, "Let's keep inventory on, guys," and they're like, "No, that's easy mode." And what if I want easy mode?
so here's the thing. For me, I blew out my wrist in August of 2024. I had a big writing thing I was
Hmm.
doing and I injured my wrist. And to me, creative mode is an accessibility
Hmm.
tool in order for me to play.
Hmm.
I cannot, it's
Yeah.
physically, I can't sit there and like click, 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 click,
Hmm.
click, click, click to bash through something. And I have creative constraints that I keep for
Yeah.
myself in creative mode, which I love, which is that I cannot use any block I have not actually found in
Hmm.
the world. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, which means like when I show up at a village and there's three cartographers full of maps, I'm so happy. Um, but I think that's one of the other really interesting things about game design and user interface, which
Hmm.
is part of
Yeah.
graphic design, is like how does it accommodate different people coming at that
Hmm.
experience,
Yeah.
right? And if it does, awesome. And if it doesn't,
Hmm.
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 And when you talked about Uno and like the colors and the numbers and like how important that is, and also the question about color blindness. Like if you've read green color blindness, what else? How do we make this more
Hmm.
accessible for you? Um, and I just really think it's just always a good question to
Yeah.
ask of like, are we making this so that you can use it?
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And this second point I wanted to add on about first off, it is true. I would say my generation is incredibly stressed
yeah,
all the time, and it is. I cannot lie. It is that damn phone.
yeah, yeah,
Like I used to get mad at my parents for being like, "You're on the phone too much," and it's true.
yeah,
I we're
Mm.
not built as humans to have so much information coming into our brains all the time about especially
Mm.
negative things happening all the time.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
makes us a level of knowledgeable, and that is good, but also
Mm.
I can see that it's stressful, and a lot of, and it
It's
also adding
stressful.
on to the already stressful conditions of the places we live in. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
Obviously, I'm also thinking outside the studio is our friends at Eagle Eye TV, our not radio station. We're the radio station. They're the TV. They're the TV studio.
Yeah.
They have four
Cool.
TVs out there that have four different news channels playing at all time,
Oh my God. Oof.
and because they have to know that. And you know what? Sometimes that's a lot on my brain, and probably on their brains too.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about finding sometimes thinking about having fun in a time like this is like almost like insane.
It's a radical act. Like
But
right now,
it's
really and
good.
for true, like it's a radical act of resistance and like reasserting your identity and personhood
Yeah.
to have fun
Mhm.
with friends. So here's the specific things, right? So, and phones is part of it. If the extractive powers that exist under the oppression that is capitalism
Yeah.
and patriarchy,
Mhm.
um, if they can keep us isolated, inside, depressed, and consuming,
Mhm.
they win.
Yeah.
So going outside
Mhm.
is amazing. Like
You'll have
like
no
connecting
idea.
with friends. Yeah. And like doing like playing games in person with friends. I don't care what games. It could be tag, it could be
Mhm.
this game my sister invented called Volvo,
Mhm.
where you sit on a park, you sit facing the street and you just count Volvos till you
Mhm.
get to 100 Volvos. I mean, this works in some cities. It doesn't work in all
Would not
cities, but
work
like
in Alabama.
Volvo, you know. So, but that sort of like if you can get to be in connection with another human being playing a
Mhm.
game, you are defeating all four of that,
Yeah.
isolated inside alone, or isolated inside, depressed and consuming.
Yeah.
Even this, like, and that's the place where the technology, like, to have real time face to face, like we could play a game over
Yeah.
Zoom. That's awesome, and that helps defeat the four horsemen of the oppressive, extractive, patriarchal capitalist machine that is trying to crush us all down into like just
Yeah.
little get
Mhm.
back in your box.
Yeah, it's like it's freeing, and we don't even
Mm.
realize it is until we do
Yeah,
it. You
yeah,
know?
yeah,
It
yeah.
seems like, "Oh, I don't want to spend my free time like playing a game." Like it's almost just like this weird inner voice that I think a lot of people have. But then when you play,
Mm.
you're like, "I'm actually having fun, and I'm not as debilitatingly sad and alone than
Hmm.
before." And
Hmm.
even if it's, and a lot of the time people say they don't have enough people to play with, like even just playing Uno in the studio makes life a little bit better. And I like that.
100%. There was something I talked right over. You had a point. Was that the point? Because in my like,
I don't know what my point was, but it was probably
okay,
that.
cool. Okay, great.
It was
Awesome.
probably me talking about how it is difficult, I think, for younger people to imagine having fun, because it's almost
Mm.
like, how can I have fun at a time like this? Because we're being inundated with all of
Yeah,
this news and
yeah.
negativity, and it's like it weighs on us mentally. But when we break free of that and we have fun, it's not saying these things aren't happening and these things aren't bad.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
saying that as a human, I know my
Yes.
limits, and I know that to be at my best self and to be the best person that I can be for others, I have to have
Hmm.
fun, and I have to
Yeah.
be around other people so that they can have fun and they can be better and
Yes.
that all of us can have
Yeah.
fun, and that's awesome.
Yeah. There's a thing I did postpartum depression support counseling
Hmm.
for 12 years. And one of the things I said over and over to people coming through that program was that like you have to fill up your own well.
Yeah.
If you are pouring out constantly to care for other people around you, you pour endlessly, endlessly pouring out, you become so depleted. And I think that's part of what you're talking
Hmm.
about. Like, and I think that if more folks of any age could could understand and like really take in that like having moments of light and joy and laughter and fun by themselves or with other people helps the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing to help the world. If you feel better, you're going
Yeah.
to be more able to help your friend feel better,
Yeah.
right? And playing games is a great way to do that. Um, just if you're adding to the positive space in the world
Mm-hmm.
by by creating that space. You and like certainly it's not like a like la 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 nothing bad is
Yeah.
happening, but it's like just recognizing I also have to do this, right? It's the bread and roses
Mm-hmm.
part, right? We have to do the work and we have to have the pleasure. Um, or what is life? Why are we here? What are we doing?
Yeah.
I'm not here to work, pay taxes, and die.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm here to express my humanity in the fullest way possible, and that includes playing games and hanging out and talking about design and like thinking about art and you know all these other things
Yeah.
and being outside, right? Yeah, that was a thing that when I was talking about where you
Oh
like
yeah.
it was like, oh yeah,
I
going
sat
outside.
up because multiple times in this show, you know, or Type Speaks, I've talked to designers and they're like, "Oh, my work is better when I go outside." And we don't think about that
100%.
often because
Yeah.
I know that when I'm like locked in on even if like a friend's I'm doing a project for a friend, I'm like, I need to get this
Hmm.
done. I need to stay inside, get it done. But when I go
Hmm.
outside and I like rest and I run around and I frolic perhaps,
Yay.
I have a like my work becomes better because I'm
Yeah.
like I am letting myself I'm feeding myself basically. I'm nourishing myself in my brain.
Yes, because like this is a thing that's been going on for 2000 years. We're not really evolutionarily like optimized for sitting still
No.
the time. And like if the more you're hammering your head against a design problem, the more you should get up and go
Mhm.
for a walk,
Mhm.
hopefully with a friend, and like talk about
Mhm.
stuff. And then your
Yeah.
design problem will work it out. You don't have to like climb mountains. You don't have to go trekking for weeks. You just like get up and walk around the block.
Mhm.
And then say, here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm talking about. What do you think about that? Oh, got it. And then you can go back and
Yeah.
do the thing you need.
Yeah. Definitely. End of discussion is touch grass.
I prefer hug tree, but that's just me.
Hey, thanks for listening to Type Speaks. Hope you had a good time, because I sure did. But unfortunately, the episode is over. But don't worry, you can check us out in other places. Be sure to follow the show to listen to every new episode or listen back to some old ones. Check us out on Instagram at TypeSpeaksPod. And remember, always keep creating and always stay curious. I'll see you next time. I've been Ray.